Welcome back to We're Not the Same. We've got some exciting news today to share.
We've got t-shirts.
We're going to talk a lot more about them in the episode today, and we're also talking all about community. So how to get involved with the community, how to find a community, and how to be a part of ours. So with that,
let's dive in. As promised, our second exciting announcement is obviously our t-shirts, and we don't just have these two designs. We have created a whole line of designs, and it's just the first go around. We're going to have more to come, and over time, probably several launches. That's the goal. So I am wearing the More God, Less Gov bubble letter. This comes in black or white. We have all kinds of different of the t-shirt colors, so you can decide what you like best. I also have it with a smaller design if you're not quite as loud and proud as I am, which I think everyone should be, but I understand that some people are a little scared of getting punched in the face.
Yes. And these are also 100% cotton. So we've got the good fabric, which we talked about in a previous episode, all the frequencies and vibrations with the clothing. So
what kind of sickos would we be if we were selling you polyester t-shirts, guys?
And I've got the Not the Same t-shirt in cursive writing with the cross in the center for the T. And that's our verse, 2 Corinthians 5:17, right? Yeah. And so that's at the bottom of all of our podcasts. And it's obviously the theme here. We're not the same. So these are two of our favorites, but there's a lot out there. And just go check it out. We're super excited to be sharing all of our t-shirts with you all.
And if there's any one that you wish was slightly different, like bigger version or smaller version, or you wish something was on the back, or we're open to feedback. This is our first time, releasing designs, but we can pretty much make anything. So
that's right. Lots of colors, lots of different things. So we're just excited to be, I feel like I'm so passionate about, man, I really need some shirts that are not just plain t-shirts. I want to be loud and proud statements for Christ and freedom and all of that. So we're excited to have this own launch.
And we found lots of good ones that we, have, as you've probably seen on the podcast. We kind of our uniform when we film an episode is to have one of our statement tees, but it's so cool that now we're able to just make our own and hopefully match some of you guys out there eventually as well, which lends itself to what our goal is, which is to grow our community. And that's what we want to talk about today with you guys.
That's right. We can't do it alone. It's very, very biblical. There's so many verses about how we are supposed to do this with our brothers and sisters and lean on each other and build each other up. Iron sharpens iron. Lots in the biblical sense to doing things together and not having to do this fallen world together. So we're excited to be here talking to you about that. And we really want to dive in today about, I don't know, I'm an introvert, so trying to reach out to people and do stuff with people is not my cup of tea.
Yeah, but let's just define introvert and extrovert. That's one of my pet peeves, is that people don't know the definition of introvert and extrovert.
The energy.
Yeah, it's where you derive your energy from. So being an introvert doesn't mean that you don't know how to talk to people or you don't like to be around people. It just means that after having a social interaction, you need to recharge by yourself versus more of an extrovert, which I think I am an extrovert. I've always been kind of on the line in the different personality tests, but I really think I am an extrovert because you feel refreshed and renewed after being around others, and being alone is more draining. So
yep,
I'm definitely, which is funny because you go out into the world every day and I don't. So
swap our roles.
Yeah.
Stay at home. Yeah. So it's harder for me, I feel to reach out to people and find the different things. But I feel we also hear all the time, most successful people have mentors and have people that they go out and, learn from and all of that. And we, you hear that all the time, but how do you do that? How did we do it? That's what we want to talk about because it is so important. What those people are saying is so true, especially when we talk about things that are so counter world and counter what everybody else is doing. Mm-hmm. So it's harder to find those people.
Yeah, I was going to say it's harder to find, but it's even more important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can go it alone, but it's way harder and not fun at all to do it that way, and I feel we, in the beginning, that's how we were. And we felt so lonely and like, like we're the only ones feeling this way or thinking these things. And then we made it a focus. Like I think we said, our word of the year is community. And we've really put a focus on that and taking the time to get together with people and reach out to people more often and do all of those things to be able to grow our community, which it has grown, but there's always room for more.
And I think the community starts in your home, like, especially on things like this. Like, you have to have partnership with, if you're single, then, I mean, it's just you. But if if you're married and have a spouse, that's where it starts. Like, your community starts with your family. Like, you have to start there, because if you're not on the same page or not in it together, it's just not going to get as far as God wants it to get. And you're not going to fulfill his will unless you are doing it together, because that's how we're designed to be, is one together as a couple. With that said, I think one spouse might be more invested at first in finding new things out, whether it be health related or freedom related in any sort, or just like waking up to this world, which is the case. We've talked about this, which is the case where you kind of started it and then kind of brought me along the journey. But I still think before expanding out and really building a community, it has to start here first.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be weird if I started inviting people over, and I don't know. I mean, I guess you could do it that way if you have like an unwilling spouse.
That's
just
true.
Bring more people on your side in, and
I guess there's no wrong way to do it.
Yeah,
but I think
I think with
anything,
yeah, if you and your spouse are aligned, you're gonna find success more quickly and more easily on literally anything.
Yeah,
that's been our experience, at least. Before you can grow your community, first you have to figure out what community you even are trying to grow. So the first thing you need to do is really get set in your values and your stance on things. And then you need to be unapologetically outspoken about those things. And you need to not shy away from sharing your opinion in conversations when those come up. And, I think for a lot of things, even before we got into all the things we're in now, just even in the past, I wouldn't say what I really thought in conversations because, I knew it wasn't what people were going to agree with. But so you just have to grow that muscle of being able to stand on your own 2 feet for your values and not worry about what other people think. And that is sort of the first step, I feel like, of growing a community, is kind of weeding out the community you might already have. And not that you can't be friends or have community with people that you disagree with, because I think you definitely can. But I think the community we're talking about today is finding people who are like-minded, who are able to help you grow in your journey and help support the same missions and kind of running the race together.
And I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing is you got to do the hard thing. And you got to mix up your life. Like, if you want to change, you've got to take those steps. You got to be brave. You have to step out of your comfort zone. Like, these are all things that you got to push through to keep getting better. And I going back to like being an introvert and like stepping into these different roles of asking people and trying to engage others, and especially, at church or whatever, trying to get involved with different groups. Like, that's not where I naturally gravitate, but I know that is something that's important to do and what I'm talking about specifically is like getting involved with men's groups at church, or even, having people over for dinner and stuff that we've been trying to do. Like, those aren't natural things. I think for me, and maybe even us, because we haven't done it, and now we are doing it, and we are, reaping the fruit of that labor. I think as you start trying to figure out where your community or what to do tactically to try to find this, is I think a great place to start is certainly a church. And I think if you don't have a church, it's probably time to go get one.
And even that is kind of uncomfortable. Like, for us, when we were kind of looking around for a new church, just going into a church, I think there's a sense of feeling like, oh, everybody there is going to know that I don't belong or something like that. But that's really not true. I mean, maybe in some small towns where everybody goes to the same church or something, I don't know. But I feel like in most cases, you see different people at church all the time. It's not just like the same 100 people every Sunday. So, and also like, who cares? If you're especially a Christian and you're going into a church, they should be very welcoming. Like, if they're the kind of church you want to be at, they're going to be so happy that you're there. And we did experience that at the churches we tried out, where people were so kind and welcoming and like introduced themselves, So I guess in that sense, they did notice that we were new, but not in a bad way, like nobody is going to be like, oh, who is this new person? Why are they here?
It's not very Christian.
Yeah, if they are, that's not the church for you anyways. So I think, you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable in seasons of growth and change in your life. And that's not easy for anyone. We all don't like that. We all like to just do the same thing and be comfortable and not have to put ourselves in potentially awkward situations. But
there's so many good things. I think church is such a great place in the sense of that it's unnatural community right away. And there's going to be,
and there's like opportunities that like, hey, come out to this. And
here's a small group, here's a men's group, or a women's group, or this community thing we're doing. Like it just it makes it easier to open that door into a lot of different opportunities. But I think it's important to try out different churches or not be afraid to try something else out. Even if you're not planning to switch, maybe you love your church, but like there's a lot of churches around. Like go for a Sunday and try something else out.
Yeah.
And if something sparks or if it doesn't, then you've learned something at least.
Yeah, we did that. And
we bounced around to a couple.
Went to, even after we felt happy with the church that we're at now, we went to another church just with some friends and just to try it out. And I mean, it was a great service. We didn't feel like called to suddenly switch to that church, but it was still a good experience and got to, have a new perspective of, comparing your church that you're at to other churches. So I think it's a good thing to do and just to never get too comfortable or like I always am a skeptic of everything. And so I'm just constantly even in my mind like, oh, is this right for us? Or, like taking what's said at church and just like, holding that against scripture, against my own personal beliefs and just making sure that like everything's in alignment. So I think it's never good to just put your blinders on and just be like committed to any one thing. You should always be questioning and reassuring, that you're aligned with whatever it is.
Yeah. That by testing you will discern what is the will of God. It's in Romans 12. Like he asks you, you renew your mind and test so that you can, understand and see what his real will is for you.
Yeah.
If you just stay on one path, maybe it is the right path, but if you don't try things or open your mind or research and other things, it kind of is all broad. You won't know what is what.
I think another tactical thing that you can do is start saying yes to things. So that's a big part of what we started doing was if God put something in our path, we try to say yes to it if at all possible. So like I was invited to a women's group at a different church and old me, I feel like would have never gone, would have not invited by somebody like secondhand, like, oh, this person goes to this group, you should go with them. Like somebody I didn't know at all. So there's just no way that old me would have gone. But my goal is to build a community. My goal was to get to know more people and, to grow in finding friends who share my faith and stuff like that. And so I went and I'm so happy that I did that. And now I have, this group of ladies, like, are we all best friends now? No, but are they people that probably would help me out if I ever reached out to them and needed something? Like, yeah. And I would do the same for them, And so it's just getting to know people, even just a little bit. It makes a difference and it makes you feel like, hey, like there's people that care about me. They don't know everything about me, but they care enough to be there if there was ever a need. And it's a comforting feeling.
Yeah. And I think, it's important to pray and ask God to put these things into your life. I mean, even before a lot of these big changes that we had, I remember I was talking about like, oh man, I need to, step up my game and understand what a spiritual leadership is and explore more of our faith and all that. And then, I was just saying this to a buddy of ours who is more of a Christian, like deeper in his faith and like was part of these groups. And he remembered having that conversation with me one time, and then he wanted to start his own small group, and he remembered that I had said that, and he reached out. He's like, hey, no pressure. I'm planning to do this. Like, is this something you'd be interested in? It's a whole year. Like, there's a commitment. And I was like, there really wasn't much hesitation other than like, is this going to be okay? Like going every week for in the morning, getting up with the kids, which it was not a problem at all. But yeah, and then that was just put it, and then you immediately have, you know, we have it's 4 guys, so I have 3 great friends we'd all do anything for each other. And again, we've talked a lot about this, and I think this is where community comes in too, is we're supposed to be, you know, we're supposed to be really tight with folks and be able to even like share our sins with our brothers and sisters and confess and all of that. And you can't do that in large groups and in a lack of community. So it's so critically important to have that, to be able to have those talks, have deep thoughts, like get beyond the surface of, well, how was your day? How was your day? What you're doing this weekend? I feel like every week at work, it's always like, how was your weekend? Then later in the week, what are you doing this weekend? Yeah. It's like over and over and over again, which is just mind-boggling. So,
well, hey, maybe you should come up with some new questions.
Yeah.
Just as you're on your own that you could ask people.
That's true. I should think about
be
doing
the change
that.
You want to see in the world.
Man, new shirt idea. I like that. What was your biggest sin this week?
That'll go over well.
Yeah, but it is, you know, pray about it. God will put the right things in your life, and I feel like the whole point of this is have a community to talk and share.
And so this is just another thought that I had of just what is the importance of community? And they say, I have no idea where this comes from, but I've heard it many times. You probably have too, of you are the combination of the 5 people you're closest to. And so who are you closest to? You know, what are the influences that you have in your life? And you may not realize they may not even necessarily be having a negative effect on you per se, but don't you want people around you who are going to make you better? Not make you better, but make you make yourself better, to rise to the occasion, you know, to have people around you who are doing better than you in some areas, you know, like not saying others are killing it and we're just bumps on a log or anything, but having people around us who are further along in their faith journey that we can aspire to be like, who know more about health things that we can learn from, who, you know, have older kids that can give us parenting advice, you know, and all of those, you know, that can be one person each that you have. And even I've heard this before too, of if you can't literally find someone that's like, hey, I want you to be my mentor, and you know, you have this close personal relationship with them, which obviously that's like ideal, and I feel like we do have that now, but just pick somebody that you like admire some quality in them, and you know, even find out what they do, you know, or just think, what might they do? I don't know. Like, you don't have to literally find a person and have them like coach you through every step of life and tell you all their secrets. Even just on a podcast, like find somebody on a podcast that is an expert on some topic and listen to them and like take what they say to heart. I feel like that's what a lot of people don't do. Is there's so much information out there now. It's just information overload for all of us. But what are you really listening to and like taking to heart and making the change? And that's where your own personal discernment is going to have to come into play of who you're going to listen to and what advice you're going to take and what you're going to implement. But I think that's something that we grew in, was being able to,
and still growing in,
to see like, okay, this person is doing better than me in this area. Like humbling ourselves because that's not easy to do, right? You never want to really think like this person knows more than I do in this topic, or they're further along in their journey or whatever it is. But it's really important to recognize there's always going to be people ahead of you and there's always going to be people behind you. So
yeah, and starting those conversations is a lot easier than I mean, can you just imagine if someone came up to you and like, man, I see how you know, are leading your family, and that seems really cool. And I want to like learn more about that. And I want to like learn what you know about that. I mean, can you imagine someone coming up to you, say like pick any of your skills and be like, hey, I've noticed this. Can you help me learn that? Like you'd be like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I'll do whatever you want. Like call me anytime. So like, that's the perspective, right? Nobody's going to say, I mean, it'll be rare if you're like, nah. Like,
somebody would be like, oh my gosh, why would you say that to me? Like,
yeah, right?
Right? Be flattered.
Exactly. So
that's so true.
There's no reason to not ask or try to reach out, but you got to be around those people first. And that's where you have to be able to step out of your comfort zone. And I think as we think tactically too about our lives and our experiences that we had, I think you think about the different categories as you think about health, right? So if you want to do something different, you got to step outside the norm. So what's your typical norm of health? You know, you have your primary care doctors, you've got your MDs and are part of your hospitals and all of that. So if you want to take a step outside that, what are some things? There's the DOs, which are like MDs, but they're a little more, I forgot what exactly it stands for, but they learn a little more holistical things in medical school. You can step further outside of that with like chiropractic, which is where we went. We didn't do naturopaths, which we've also been to as well. Again, focused more on you are designed to heal. Let's try to figure out the best way for you to do that. Let's try to get yourself out of your way. Let's try to get the world out of your way so that your body can do what it's designed to do versus here's a magical potion, pill, whatever, surgery that's going to solve your problems, which it never does.
It never does. They're never, like, the promises are never kept in the medical industry.
Yes. So like you got to take the step out of that. And that's where try different things. Try a chiropractor. Maybe you don't like one. Don't give up. Try a different chiropractor or look on their reviews. Like see, because a lot of people who are outside of the main norm areas are going to have more strong opinions that might align with what you're looking for, which is kind of what happened to us. We found our chiropractor who is amazing and like also believes in all the things that we were like researching about. And again, he's like an expert on all of this health and knowledge that just we want to keep learning from. But without finding him and having him as like a guide, like we would still be lost.
Well,
trying to look for
and
something.
Without taking the first step of like going to a chiropractor, which was me that put my life on the line. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, I was a little nervous, right? The propaganda against chiropractic, was instilled in me. And so I was scared to go, but
looking back, that's so funny.
Grateful, obviously. And I mean, I think it's just a God thing. You're never going to change by just doing the same things over and over again. And you also never know where you're going to grow your community. You never know who you're going to meet that's going to lead you to this person, to this person, to this person, and I think that's where, for us, obviously, our faith comes in and God places these people in our path to open the different doors. And then it's ultimately up to us to walk through them. And that's where the whole saying yes thing comes into play. And also remembering that, everything can be undone too, just as everything, there's really a low risk of, like, let's take the moms group that I mentioned before. Let's say I had gone to this moms group and like it was just a disaster or something. I mean, I can't even imagine the scenario, like what could have gone so wrong that it would be terrible. But then I just would never have gone again. Yep. Like it's so
low risk, high reward.
Low risk, high reward. So as you're pushing yourself to do things, just think of like, what's the worst that could happen? But I actually have a sticker on my mirror here in our room that I look at every day that actually says, what's the best that could happen? And just shifting your mindset of like, yeah, you could look at what's the worst that could happen. That's probably not going to happen. But what's the best that could happen? Maybe you'll go to this mom's group and become great friends with a whole group of ladies who are some in the same boat as you, some are ahead of you on the journey and can give you advice. And, that's what happens. So just that mindset, I literally read it every day and every night when I'm brushing my teeth. What's the best that could happen? Because that is not my nature. I don't know if that's anyone's nature to think that way, but certainly not mine. So I just need that reminder all the time.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And I think one thing that was most recently talked about, and I mentioned it a little bit in our men's group that I just went to, was the whole Proverbs of iron sharpens iron. And this is the concept of you need people together to, as you bash iron together, it can sharpen it. But part of that, in order to, sharpen the iron, you have to be close together. You can't, iron sharpens iron. You can't do that if you're separated. So you have to be around people in order to sharpen each other and learn from each other and grow. So it's important, just again, to build that community in order to do that.
And I think it's a universal thing that we all want more friends. We all want to be invited to something. We all want someone to reach out to us. But you can either sit at home and, wonder when that's going to happen, or you can be the friend that you want to have. And you can send that text. You can set up that coffee date. You can ask somebody to lunch. Or even if it's just, I've been bad at this recently, but at one point I was making a real effort to reach out to people if I thought of them. So like if somebody popped into my mind first, kind of just unexpectedly, I would send them just a simple text like, hey, I was just thinking of you. Like, I hope you're doing well. And, maybe they respond or maybe they don't. But how nice to be. It feels a little awkward to send that, right? Just a random out of the blue text of like, hey, I was thinking of you. Like, oh, great. Now I seem like a creep. Now I seem like a weirdo. Like, why am I thinking of them? I have no idea. But imagine being on the receiving end of that. Like, imagine just you're going about your day and a text pops up from someone you haven't heard from in a while. And they're just like, hey, I was thinking of you.
I took you one further.
Literally be so happy.
Yeah, I took you one further and being, I guess, maybe more awkward, especially if people aren't like of Christian faith or whatever. But like I was doing that too for a while and I should get back into it. Like when someone popped into my mind, I would like have this feeling of like wanting to pray for them. So I would text them and be like, hey, hope everything's going well. Like, is there anything specific I can be praying for you and your family for? And I even did that to our, this sounds really weird, but one of our AC guy or one of our HVAC AC guys who came over and helped me like fix the HVAC. Now he came over a bunch and we like talked about family and all this good stuff.
Yeah.
But still, it's like, it's not
kind of a random guy.
Kind of a random guy. But he was like super appreciative and all that. And, it's the same thing. You're not doing it, to get accolades or anything like that. But I think it's a good thing. If something comes on your mind, if someone comes on your mind, let them know that you're thinking about them.
So the other way that I personally have been able to grow community too is through social media, which we like literally grew up when the internet was becoming a thing. And it was like, don't talk to people on the internet. And now I'm like good friends with people from the internet. So my, how the times have changed. But that's another space, right, where I had to become this very strong, outspoken person. And I think social media is so weird because there's no nuance, right? So you can't insert a lot of nuance. You can't insert a lot of tone. Yeah. So you're just really putting yourself out there to say, this is how I feel on a topic, which again, the weeding out process is harsh. But when you separate the wheat from the chaff, you really see, you can form strong bonds with people, because when you take a hard stance on an issue, you're going to have that connection with people of like, say like my pro-life stance, for example, like that's a strong bond with other people who are very passionate about that. That's something that you can just spend hours talking about and relating to and sharing and all these things. So, I don't think everybody is going to go out there and like grow a following on social media. You don't want to meet random strangers off the internet. But I mean, I friggin' love my friends that I know from Instagram. And I'm so grateful that some of them have become like in real life friends.
Yeah. And that's where like I almost was thinking like this would be the easier way to grow a community. But I can understand like it's a lot. I mean, it's a ton of work to actually like try to grow and all of that, but you could still use it as a sense to find people who have similar thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, it's still a platform to basically be able to share your values, and things that may otherwise not come up in conversation. And then somebody might see that and be like, oh, I didn't know you felt that way. Like, I also am super passionate about that. And you end up growing a friendship with somebody that maybe, you were just an acquaintance with, or, like I know a girl that we knew each other in college and we're friends, but, kind of lost touch. But now she, had followed me all those years ago. And now we're like closer friends because we share the same beliefs. And we're like, oh my gosh, what do you know? Like should have spoken up back then. We could have bonded more over these topics. So one last way, it's not necessarily really growing a community, but just a way to feel like you're more a part of community is actually by wearing t-shirts.
True.
When we go out, obviously we live in Orlando, so we go to Disney a lot and there's plenty of people there. But sometimes we'll see somebody in a great shirt, or even at, restaurants, and we see somebody and you just, again, you have to be loud and proud. Put yourself out there and be like, hey, I love your shirt. That's like, might be uncomfortable in some situations to say, but I love doing that. Like, I'll see somebody across the way at Disney, I'll be like, you in the DeSantis shirt. I love that shirt. Like, I don't care. So, you know, it's, again, like, you're never going to see those people again. But, you know, like, when I've been on the receiving end of that, wearing a shirt, and somebody says, hey, I love your shirt, that brings a smile to my face. Just knowing that there's other people out there who, you know, feel the same way you do, even if they're not as outspoken.
And now if they say, oh, I love your shirt, we'll whip out a card and say, here, go get your own.
We need a little QR code on the sleeve or something.
That's true. Scan here. Love it. So hopefully these are some helpful tips. And honestly, we'd love to build a community with you and for you to be part of our community. So reach out to us on Instagram. We've got @the_Logens is one that we actually just launched today. We've had our individual accounts, but now we're officially @the_Logens on Instagram. So reach out there. And we
always put that links to our Instagram in the description of every episode. So if you can't find it, just go down there. Click on it.
Absolutely. So be part of our community. Like, it's a great place to start. You know, we've got a lot of, you know, growing and learning to do ourselves, but we're all in this together. And if you haven't already too, check out our most recent free ebook on healthy living, low tox living, animal-based diet. It's a great way to get started. It's totally free. It's a great ebook that Katie put together. We'll put the link in the description below. Go check it out. And it will also have the link to our t-shirt merchandise as well. So,
yes.
So we are super excited to be with you guys. Thank you for sticking with us.
And we have more exciting things in the work too. So, you know, keep sticking around and exciting things to come.
Yes. All right. We love you guys. We'll be praying for you and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.